With Destiny's most recent sandbox tuning, Bungie finally addressed player concerns with their newest combat system, Airborne Effectiveness. The January 19th TWAB stated that, quote, primary weapons without any investment into the AE stat would be as accurate as they were before this system was introduced with Icarus Grip. Because of this, they also improved the benefits of AE at its highest tiers, meaning your weapons will perform better than ever while airborne if you do invest into it. This got me really curious, so I wanted to make an aerial build, one that heavily invested in AE to see how much of a difference it would make after these changes. But what I found is an absolutely ridiculous build that not only makes your weapons massively ramp up in damage, but you also take 50% less flinch and get a massive amount of damage resistance that turns you into a raid boss. Having all of those buffs together renders you basically unbeatable in any dueling situation. The craziest part about this build, however, is that it all happens while you are in the air almost 100% of the time with perfect accuracy. What's up guys, my name is Amson. If you enjoyed this video, dropping a like really helps a ton, and subscribe because this is my dog Chase, and it would make him really happy if you subbed. Alright, let's get into the build. When looking at the best ways to build into AE, I looked for exotic armor pieces first because they can provide huge benefits of the stat. For example, Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves provides hunters a plus 50 stat buff to all sidearms, or Rain of Fire that gives warlocks plus 30 airborne effectiveness to all fusions and linear fusions. But I wanted an exotic that not only would provide that huge 50 stat bonus, I wanted it to apply to all weapon types. So I landed on a long forgotten exotic that provides way more benefits than most players realize. That exotic is the Warlock chest piece, Wings of Sacred Dawn. If you're like me, you thought this was the exotic that just suspended you in midair, making you the easiest target practice for the enemy team. But upon further digging, it does so much more. Its exotic perk is called Tomb of Dawn, which when Dawnblade is equipped, aiming your weapons will suspend you in midair, improve your airborne effectiveness by 50 for all weapons, reduce incoming flinch by 25%, and provide you with 15% damage resistance. Again, you get all of those benefits by just aiming down sights. So not only are we going to have an extremely high AE stat, we're also going to take way less flinch, making it easier to duel enemy players. They will also be doing less damage to us, making every Guardian cry when their hand cannon can't 3-tap. As I mentioned before, you have to have Dawnblade equipped to use Wings of Sacred Dawn, which is perfect because this is Destiny's aerial-based subclass. So let's jump over to the aspects and fragments that will bring this build to the next level. Starting with our abilities, we actually aren't going to take a rift here. We will be choosing Phoenix Dive. This is because you can often find yourself stuck in the air while using Wings of Sacred Dawn due to it suspending you. Phoenix Dive provides a super quick way to get out of those bad situations and will also heal you and nearby allies so you're instantly ready to fight again. Moving on over to Jump, every Warlock main is currently furious right now that I'm not taking Burst Glide, but instead we will be choosing Strafe Glide because of the strong directional control that it provides while airborne. We're going to be in the air a majority of the time while using this build, so that extra directional control is going to be extremely valuable to us. More on that later. Celestial Fire will be our melee of choice because it provides a really easy way to scorch targets from long distances. That'll be really important when we talk fragments. Lastly, we are going to take Firebolt Grenade because it is the shortest cooldown of all solar grenades. We're going to want our grenades up as much as possible because we're going to consume them using our first aspect, Heat Rises. Heat Rises will allow us to float up in the sky really high and stay airborne for long durations. This lets us always stay ready for a fight because instead of starting on the ground, seeing an enemy, having to jump to get airborne, and then engaging, we can already be airborne, which gives us a huge advantage in gunfights. Heat Rises will also heal us when activated and will grant us melee energy when we get airborne kills. The second aspect is Icarus Dash, which is an obvious choice because it gives us an airborne dodge for additional movement, and it can also heal us if we get rapid kills while in the air. On to the fragments we go, and the first fragment we will take is Ember of Searing. When we defeat scorched targets, it will grant us melee energy. Remember, Celestial Fire scorches, so if we melee a target and then kill them while airborne, this fragment combined with Heat Rises will give us a huge chunk of melee energy back. The next fragment will be Ember of Torches, which makes us radiant when we land our Celestial Fire. So not only are we going to have a ton of melee charges, but now they will also give us a damage bonus to our weapons. Now we can do more damage while the enemies will be doing less. Ember of Singeing is our next choice, which will recharge our Phoenix Dive when we scorch targets. Again, Again, thank you Celestial Fire. Our final fragment will be Ember of Combustion. Not only does it provide a stat boost to strength, bringing mine to 100 for those super fast melee charges, but it also has a really weird interaction with my super, Well of Radiance. This fragment states that final blows with your super will cause targets to ignite, but with a well, any kills you get while standing inside of it will count as a super kill. Therefore, you can pop your well down and absolutely fry groups of enemy players. Now that we've got the subclass covered, let's move on to the crown jewel of this build. Every great build has synergy between its exotic armor and its exotic weapon. Since aerial combat is the focus, there is no better option than the Manticore. I had heard whispers of the Manticore Wings of Sacred Dawn combo being pretty nuts in PvP, but I never understood why. I mean, they do the same thing, right? Why would you use two exotics that suspend you in midair? Well, after some testing, their synergies go so much deeper than I could have ever imagined. The Manticore exotic perk is called Soaring Fang, which when grounded will charge up anti-grav repulsors, and while airborne will extend anti-grav repulsors. Anti-grav repulsors are the meter of energy that will suspend you in midair. The difference between this and the Tomb of Dawn perk on Wings of Sacred Dawn is because this allows you to move while suspended. This is the first subtle way that these two exotics work together. See, while you are floating with Wings of Sacred Dawn, you are, quote, suspended, meaning you are in a fixed position. You cannot move laterally or strafe, making you a super easy target to kill, which is the main reason most people consider this exotic to be F tier. However, with anti-grav repulsors charged, it actually overrides that and allows you to move in any lateral direction while Tomb of Dawn is active. This gives you a huge advantage because not only do you get the AE buff, the flinch resistance, and the damage resistance, but now you can get all of those buffs while moving. The Manticore's other perk is called Swooping Talons, which will ramp up the damage you deal while airborne. This is roughly a 22% damage buff at max value, so instead of hitting 18 to the head, you will now be hitting 22s. But that's not where the damage stops. Remember earlier when we put on the fragment Ember of Torches, which makes us radiant with our melee? Well, that radiant damage buff actually stacks with Swooping Talons. When you stack these two buffs, you actually ramp up to a whopping 30% damage buff, meaning you'll be hitting 24s to the head versus the base of 18. To show how powerful that is, I did some damage testing. I was able to calculate the time to kill of Manticore with and without the radiant buff. We are going to use Teraba and No Time to Explain as the baselines, which both come in at 0.67 seconds base time to kill. The Manticore with the in-air damage buff ramped up to the max value against a player at 7 resilience will have an optimal time to kill value of 0.6 seconds. When you combine the radiant buff with Swooping Talons, it will bring your optimal time to kill down to an absolutely absurd 0.53 seconds. If you're keeping tabs on Bungie's weapon tuning blog post for Lightfall, you'll also notice that the Manticore with Radiant and Max Swooping Talons will kill in the exact same amount of time as an adaptive frame machine gun will if hitting all headshots in PvP. For one last test, I wanted to see this against a player in a Well of Radiance at tier 10 resilience. What I found is that you can actually out-damage the healing of a well and kill the player inside in less than 1 mag. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty strong. But now that we're stacking crazy amounts of damage together, what if I told you now we're going to stack up our damage resistance even more, just as a little cherry on top? I told you that these two exotics were perfect for each other, and this is another example of that, because the Manticore's Catalyst grants you damage resistance after an airborne kill. And of course, yes, it stacks. Wings of Sacred Dawn's damage resistance is 15%, which brings 140 hand cannon headshots down to 60 damage from 70. Meaning, yeah, no more 3 taps for the enemy team. But when you throw the Manticore's Catalyst on top of that, after a kill, the hand cannon's damage drops all the way down to 55 to the head. Doing the math, that adds up to roughly a 22% damage reduction, which makes a huge difference in PvP, as you can imagine. Dealing 22 to 30% more damage while the enemy player will deal 22% less damage to you renders you basically unkillable in any sort of 1v1 situation. Now that we've got our exotics and our subclass covered, let's quickly go over the armor mods that will add the finishing touches to this build. We're going to focus on ways to get our grenade back as fast as possible because we want to proc heat rises often so we can stay in the air as long as we can. Firstly, on the class item, you're going to want 2 copies of the Bomber mod because this will grant us grenade energy whenever we Phoenix dive. On your gauntlets, throw on a grenade kickstart mod so whenever we consume our grenade, we will get a small bump of grenade energy in return. I also have an SMG loader mod equipped, which will help with Manticore's reload speed. On Wings of Sacred Dawn, I have 2 SMG unflinching mods to even further reduce the amount of flinch that I will receive, making it way easier to hit shots during duels. With 2 of these on, you will get an additional 25% flinch resistance, bringing bringing our total all the way up to 50% less flinch that you will receive. And lastly, on the helmet, use the Season 19 artifact mod In-Flight Compensator. This will bring the airborne effectiveness stat of our Manticore all the way up to a max of 100 when combined with the Tomb of Dawn bonus. Throw on your favorite special kinetic weapon to pair with Manticore. My personal favorites right now are the Eye of Soul sniper rifle or the Fragments shotgun. Then that's it, you're all set. So go out there and become the helicopter of death that you've always meant to be. My name is Amps, thank you so much for watching to the end. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. If you like this one, I think you'd really love this super powerful but slept on hunter build. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in the next video.